Okay, we got a 2008 Toyota Highlander here, 208,000 miles. The CV axle has gone bad. You can see the boot here has ripped, and about 10,000 miles ago I started to get a vibration above 70 miles an hour. And one way to tell if it's your CV joint is if you let off the gas and it instantly stops vibrating, you know it's not your tire or balancing. First step is to take off this nut. Here you'll see it's indented. That's so the nut doesn't come off from the factory. So we're going to take that off first step. Next step, take off the ball joint here, and I went ahead and sprayed some WD-40 here and also back. You can see on the bearing race that goes in there, to hope that maybe possibly when I get to that point that it pulls out easier. I don't know if it's going to do anything, but it doesn't hurt. So here we go. A couple things: you can't get this nut off without a 12-point 30mm deep well. This shit I rented here, a 6-point from AutoZone. It doesn't work. It won't fit. So, or from Advanced Auto. AutoZone has one to rent with a 30mm 12-point, and you need a cheater bar. If you don't have an impact, it'll come off. You also got to this pinch point that they do at the factory. You got to open it up first with the hammer and a little chisel, because it's pinched in there so it'll spin. But just put it in there and tap this with the hammer to open it up. All right, so we got the puller on the outer tie rod. So we're just going to take it off here. I can't film and do this, so I'm going to show you after I take it off. So we got the tie rod end off. Next, remove these 3 bolts here, 17mm socket. Take those out. All right, these 3 bolts are out. Now I'm going to pound on the spindle here. Now that we have the nut off, the rubber mallet to get it out. And that's it. We got this out. We pulled the axle out of the rotor and hub. Next, you got to take this bolt out here with a 14mm socket, and then after that you'll see a pin, like a snap ring, right above the socket right here. You got to take that out with some pliers. So we're going to take this out next, and you can see how bad my boot was. Completely gone. We took that last snap ring out, and something unusual happened. This thing literally just popped right out. Like, I barely pulled it. And a problem you have on a lot of cars, maybe it's a more northern problem, I don't know, where there's salt on the roads, but this race, it seizes up on this bearing top here, and you have to pull it out. Some people cut the axle with a Sawzall or carborundum blade, but mine popped out. I got lucky, so this job's going to be super easy. You just install everything in reverse order of what we did. And I'm going to pull the axle out now. Okay, now we got the axle out, and you want to compare it to your new part, which I bought from Advanced Auto, their CarQuest part. This is the part they said fits my car, 2008 Toyota Highlander. Passenger side, and it is not the same CV axle, guys. So just a note, if you're ordering this part online, it is wrong. Even though they say it's supposed to fit your car, you can see that this is pulled over more. There's no race bearing. and the axles where it goes into your engine are different sizes. So we're gonna take this back and get the right one. I got the correct CV axle now. It's here. So you want to inspect everything, make sure it's the same. One thing about CV axles, when they're worn, it's not just the bearing in here, this bearing here. This one's super loose, the old one. This one doesn't move, you know. I mean, it goes around, but there's no angular movement. So that's a bad bearing, or a bearing that's failing. And I think this is where the vibration came from, is this bearing right here, not in here, but this. And I don't know if that's where all CV axles fail, but that looks like where mine was failing. So I'm gonna stick this thing back in here. So it's installed here. Everything's in there. Make sure you put that snap ring in. That's probably the hardest thing I had to do out of this job, which isn't bad. But everything's in. Your outer tie rod, if you're wondering how much to tighten it, you just line the hole up on the bolt to the cotter pin on that nut. You line it up on the nut, and that tells you how much you tighten it. This nut, I went ahead and kind of did like factory and just put a little notch in here, just pounded it in so maybe the nut won't move off like the factory did it. And that's basically it. Just put your tire back on, and you know, not that hard of a job, at least for me, because mine wasn't stuck. Good luck.